Well, welcome everybody to Gyra Cafe Sunday at home. I hope you're all keeping well and fit. Today I'm filming from home. I'm in lockdown, and one of the things I've been amazed by as I've watched TV, particularly news, Sky News, is in lockdown is those backgrounds that you get behind the people who are on TV. And there's all sorts of things, from very, very posh kitchens with big kitchens with high gloss surfaces and granite worktops, big kitchens, to bookcases. And bookcases, I think, is the backdrop of choice for many. And so I've decided to do the same. This is my bookcase behind me, and I don't have many books on it, just the three. The first one, hopefully as you can see, is the Holy Bible, and I'd like to believe that I have read that a bit, probably not as much as I should, but it's a great book to read. So that made it onto my bookcase that you can see behind me. And the second book in the middle is quite a thin book, but it's a real passion of mine. So this is to show you how passionate I am as well. So this is a real passion of mine. This is a book about Everton. Everton Football Club is a big passion of mine. As I say, it is a thin book. We couldn't fit the title on the spine because the title is Everton, the Trophy Years, 1878 to present day. As I say, I've read it a few times, but it is a thin book. So, but it's a real passion of mine. So that's just expressing my passion. And the third book is called Humility for Dummies. Humility for Dummies. And the reason why I put that on there is because today's topic that we're looking at is humility. And I think these bookcase backdrops that we see during lockdown, I think they have a little bit to do with today's topic of humility, or perhaps the opposite of humility. Perhaps a little bit about our pride, what we want people to think about us, maybe what we're trying to portray of the picture of ourselves. Perhaps we're trying to say, a bit like me this morning, that I'm well read. You know, I'm a thinking, intelligent person who's probably read all of these books behind me. But those other people who have those whole bookcases, they, you think, how would they ever have been able to have all the time to read all of those books? So I think that's got a little bit to do with humility, but there is an awful lot tied up in this thing called humility. And I love it when Dave gives us a really simple topic like humility, that we only have sort of 5 or 10 minutes on a video to unwrap and try and do some teaching on. But it's a great challenge, this one, humility, because there's an awful lot, as I say, wrapped up in it. So I've captured just some thoughts around that, about the complexity of humility, in the sense that there's lots of things tied up in it. Things like identity, who we are, or who we portray we are to others. Perhaps also our self-esteem, whether that's a positive self-esteem, or whether we have a negative picture of ourselves. Also, a little bit about our personality, whether we're maybe introverted or extroverted, or somewhere in between. And maybe humility's also got a little bit to do with perhaps parenting and how we've been brought up. So all sorts of things, and that's probably only to mention a few, all sorts of things are wrapped up in this thing called humility. Well, the Bible does have a lot to say about humility. You heard me read a little bit earlier some verses which I'll read to you now. James 4, verses 6 to 7. God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. So humble yourselves before God. Matthew 23, 11 and 12. The greatest among you must be a servant, but those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. So Jesus, in the Bible, he invites us to a life of simplicity. The problem is, though, humility and simplicity is not all that desirable. This book behind me about humility for dummies is probably not well read. Humility has a bad press. Perhaps we feel it's linked to humiliation, the same root word, humility, humiliation. Perhaps we think it's about being a doormat. And I think that's probably part of the problem. And we're not really sure what a humble person looks like or behaves, for that matter. So I thought we'd just clear up first what humility is not. So humility is not about being incompetent or unattractive. And it's not about beating ourselves up either, or allowing others to beat us up, or about trying to make ourselves nothing. I think humility, it has to do with choices, about life choices. And humility is an amazing character trait that, far from being a burden to us, can actually be a great gift to us. Because with humility, I think also comes, as I mentioned before, simplicity. And the two can go hand in hand. Someone once described humility as the freedom to stop trying to be what we are not, or pretending to be what we are not. The freedom to stop trying to be what we are not, or pretending to be what we are not. Martin Luther, he described humility as the decision to let God be God. In other words, we should just stop trying to be God. So we know that the Bible has said a lot about humility, and we know that Jesus has invited us to this life of humility and simplicity. But what does it look like? Well, with humility, as for many other things, our example, our teacher, is Jesus. We read earlier in John chapter 13 about Jesus taking the role of a servant and washing the disciples' feet. Dave took us through that a few weeks back, didn't he? And Jesus, in verse 15 of John 13, he says this, when he's washed the disciples' feet, he's taken on that role of a servant, he says, I have given you an example to follow. What is that example? That he came to be served, he came to serve, not to be served. He came to serve, not to be served. The literal translation of one of those verses in Philippians chapter 2, verse 6 that we read earlier, the literal translation is this. It says, your attitude should be the same as that of Christ Jesus, who, precisely because he was in very nature God, he took the very nature of a servant. And in that, we see the essence of who God is. He is goodness. He is love. He is a servant. We see humility. When Jesus came in the form of a servant, he was not disguising who God is. He was revealing who God is. So what's Jesus' plan for us with humility? How can we grow more in humility, simplicity, and service? Well, I just want to quickly just point out a couple of suggestions. And before we even jump into the suggestions, I just want to remind us that we are not God. We are not Superman. We're not Wonder Woman. So with humility, we have to start small. We'll start small. And we need to acknowledge that we are flawed, that we're human, and that we will fall over and we'll fail. But it doesn't mean we can't make a start. And that start can be a small start. It can be, as the book behind me says, humility for dummies. So in Philippians chapter 2, verse 4, it says, "Don't look out only for your own interests, but take an interest in others too." So the 2 points, the simple points to make us on this journey towards humility for us are this. First one is just be kind. Now Dave reminded us of this on Wednesday. Just to be kind. To take the opportunity with everybody that we meet, whoever they are, whether we feel they deserve some kindness or not, is to extend friendship and love to them, and to be kind. We don't know what kind of day people have had that we come across. So just to extend kindness to them in whatever form that can be. And in turn, that will bring us no status, no benefits or anything. Just to help people. So that's the first one, is just try to be kind. And then the second one is a little bit like that. It's about being available. Be available. When you've already got plans for something, you may want to watch on TV, but someone just needs to be heard, to be listened to be prayed for. So to be available, be interruptible, perhaps have an open door, set aside our own agenda for the benefit of another. Just two really simple ways that we can try to grow in this character called humility and to help others. In closing, there's a train of thought which goes around that says that all of us, whoever we are in life, we all suffer from something called a Messiah complex. Perhaps we all think we're more important than we are, and that the world revolves around us and can't exist without us. A Messiah complex. Perhaps we all suffer from that at time to time, some more than others perhaps. But what we are is we are dearly loved by God, unconditionally, and we have amazing value in His eyes. But we're not the Messiah. There was and is only one, and that was Jesus. And He is with us, and He is helping us in this journey into humility and simplicity. So in closing, just be kind, be available. Humility for dummies, and keep safe. God bless you all, and God bless you from all at Gyra. There's just one more song to listen to when the video ends, so I hope you've enjoyed this thought about humility and enjoy the last song. Thanks.